welcome to episode 431 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear, Monster Kid Radio. I'm your writer, host, producer, Derek M. Cook, and I want to welcome you to the show with a song. This is the band Surf Manchu. The song is Drywall. It's from their album, The Beast from the East. This is actually an EP that you can pick up over at surfmanchu.bandcamp.com. Of course, there will be a link in the show notes so you can go check it out when you're done listening to this episode, which is going to be a little while because there's a lot to get to in this episode of the podcast. I'm thrilled, man. I'm stoked. I've got so much here for you, and it's not just me. Of course, we've got Professor Frenzy's Bedtime Story, and it's another good one. Kenny's got his look at Famous Monsters of Filmland, and did something a little different this time around, and I kind of liked it. And Dr. Tongue's World of Monster Collectibles. So we've got the segments, and we've got the main movie that we're talking about. We're talking about a movie called Man Without a Body with author Micah Harris. Micah's somebody that I met for the first time in person a couple years back at Monster Bash, but he's been on the show repeatedly since then, and well, I think even before then. Micah's a great guy, he's a great author, and I was so happy that we finally made time to talk about this film because it's just crazy. We're going to get to all of that here in a second. First, I want to go over an email that was sent in from listener Mike D. out of Indiana. Mike says, just figured I'd drop a note about an upcoming event at the Skyline Drive-In Theater in Shelbyville, Indiana, just in case Scott Morris hasn't told you. August 23rd and 24th, from dusk till dawn, $12 per day or $20 for the full weekend with free camping. On Friday, August 23rd, they're going to be showing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the 1931 film, a movie to be announced, Reanimator from 1985, 4D Man from 1959, and Alligator People also from 1959. And then on Saturday, the 24th of August, they're showing Frankenstein from 1931, another film to be announced, 1986's The Fly, 1966's Island of Terror, and 1941's Man-Made Monster. Anyway, I'll have to go and see at least Island of Terror. My sister tells me that one of the to-be-announced films may be a Hammer film. It may be Taste the Blood of Dracula. Love your show. Mike, thanks for writing in, and thanks for giving us a heads up about this. This is actually something that I'd love for anybody and everybody to do. If there's anything happening in your neck of the woods, Monster Kid related, something that you think Monster Kids might enjoy doing, it never hurts to call in or send me an email because there may be more Monster Kid Radio listeners and Monster Kids in your area that don't know what's going on, or you might be able to even form a little kind of sort of meetup thing. If you are going to be at the Skyline Drive-In Theater that weekend, I'd also love to ask you to give us a call. Let us know how the event went. You can call our voicemail line. Our phone number is 503-479-5657. That's 503-479-5MKR. Or you can email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Although, you know what might be kind of fun is if you were to call from the drive-in itself, so we can get some of that cool drive-in background noise. Anyway, if you're going to be there, I'd love to hear how it went, and maybe look up Mike and, meet up and, do the Monster Kid thing together. This sounds like a blast. I wish I could be there, and like I told Mike, I shouldn't be jealous because I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm incredibly lucky that there are so many movies playing all the time around here. Heck, the Hollywood Theater is going to be doing a Godzilla-thon over the course of a couple of days for Godzilla movies in 35mm. That's amazing. So yeah, I shouldn't be jealous, but some of those movies to see at the drive-in, wow. I mean, Island of Terror at a drive-in, Frankenstein, Man-Made Monster, these all sound awesome in the drive-in setting. So I hope you have a blast. Thanks for sending that in, man. Okay, let's go ahead and get on to the show. We've got all those juicy segments I talked about, and then the conversation with Micah about Man Without a Body. Let's get to all of that right after this.
I say there are things better left unsolved.
Who knows what waits for us in nature's no man's land?
impossible, unbelievable, fantastic. But I tell you, it could happen. It could happen. It could happen. It could happen.
Yes, it could happen. For various authorities believe that buried somewhere under the polar ice cap, in a state of suspended animation, are the awesome creatures, the leviathans that roamed the earth at the dawn of time. And under certain conditions, a nuclear explosion could free one from his icy tomb. Then, guided by instinct, the beast would come back to the caverns of the deepest Atlantic where it was spawned. An armored giant, wreaking his prehistoric fury on modern man and his puny machines. Cities would be terrorized by the cruel intruder from the past. Populations crazed and panicked with fear by its destructive force. Granite and steel would crumble. Soldiers and their weapons would be powerless before the onslaught of the beast. The beast. The beast. The beast from 20,000 fathoms.
Herald Square, 34th Street, Broadway. Every section of the city is guarded. No one knows where the monster will strike next.
Another one, Colonel?
No.
You know what the radioactive isotope is?
No, but if it can be loaded, I can fire it.
I'll load it. Just remember one thing. This is the only isotope of its kind this side of Oak Ridge, so you can't miss.
Supernatural powers of the evil eye claim still another victim. Its malevolent enjoyment of tantalizing torture hangs threateningly over John Saxon, Letitia Roman, and Valentina Corteza.
Oh, she was always against me. She hated me.
Madness and the maddening aura that destroys reason fills their every breath with the smell of death.
Miss Dawson, have you ever seen a murder before?
No, I've never seen anything like that. Never.
Oh, stop playing games, will you, Landini? I don't know what you're trying to do, but I know that you're involved in this. Perhaps Nora has seen the killer. But how do we know that he hasn't seen her?
The evil eye, like relentless tides, reaches out for them. And they defiantly hold ecstasy and horror in their arms and touch lips with terror, while the evil eye watches their every kiss and invades their subconscious.
C-3PO,
Loki,
Mace Windu,
Dr. Bruce Banner,
Captain Rex,
Venom,
Princess Leia,
Jean Grey,
Darth Maul,
Nick Fury,
Grand Moff Tarkin,
Captain America,
Lando Calrissian,
Cyclops.
What do all these characters have in common?
Well, two of them were played by Samuel L. Jackson.
A couple of them were played by Hammer Films veterans Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Come on, guys, you know this.
Well, of course we do, Jessica. Just like Mickey Mouse and Captain Jack Sparrow, they're all now Disney characters. Hello, I'm Tracy of the Disney Indiana podcast, and my co-host Scott and I enjoy talking about all aspects of the House of Mouse, and that includes their newest properties, Marvel and LucasArts.
We also talk about Disney resorts, the cruise line, theme parks, and whatever else Mickey has to offer.
Which includes movies, Imagineering, video games, and collectibles. You'll never know what we'll decide to talk about.
So check us out at www.disneyindiana.com or do a search for the Disney Indiana podcast on iTunes, because now we've got a lot more to talk about.
And don't forget about those other quote-unquote Disney characters like, well, Sully,
Fozzie Bear,
Buzz Lightyear,
Link Hogthrob,
Doug,
Janice,
Merida,
Pepe,
Bruce,
Ralph the Dog,
Wally,
The Disney Indiana podcast. Even after 5 years, we're still miles away from the nearest Main Street, USA. We're not listed on the map, but you can join us at www.disneyindiana.com.
Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy, show. Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy, show.
Welcome to Professor Frenzy's Bedtime Stories, created especially for Monster Kid Radio. My name is Jerry Green. In this segment, I'm going to tell you a story from EC Horror Comics. Today's story is The Curse of Harkley Heath. It's from the Vault of Horror number 13, the June-July issue from 1950. It was written by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, and the art was by Wally Wood and Harry Harrison. So sit back and relax while I tell this moody story. The dilapidated old house called Harkley Heath loomed over an English moor. The three remaining Harkley cousins sat inside, reading from the 1820s diary of Clayton Harkley, the original head of the family. Clayton was mortally wounded by his brother, who would inherit the family fortune. However, he laid a curse on the family, dooming it to extinction. The three cousins, vampish Sybil, thuggish Charles, and nervous Edgar, were discussing their recent murder of their uncle. They have inherited the money now. A knock came to the door. It was their uncle's attorney bearing his will. All his money would go to cousin Sybil. After the lawyer left, the two men looked greedily at her as she went off to bed. She knew they would surely want to kill her. She was right, they did. They got a syringe full of morphine and went up to her room to do the deed. She was ready for them, though. She had a gun in her nightstand, and she hid behind the door. When Charles came in with the drug, she brandished the gun at him. Edgar, though, pushed the door into her, and the shot went harmlessly into the ceiling. They wrestled her to the ground and administered the deadly dose. After she went limp, they carried her to the deep basement vault where they would keep her until they could bring her out to the moors. The two men realized that the other would surely want to kill the other. Edgar was afraid of Sybil's spirit haunting them. When they sat in front of the fire, Edgar saw Sybil in the flames. With every creak and bang the old pile made, Edgar was certain she would return to take revenge. Charles dismissed these thoughts as foolishness. Instead, Charles said, "You should be afraid of me." He chased his nervous cousin into a dead-end room. As he closed in for the kill, a chandelier fell from the ceiling, killing Charles. Edgar was sure the accident was the work of Sybil's ghost. He ran down the hall to escape the house, but as he opened a door, Sybil appeared in front of him. "You're dead," Edgar cried. "No," she said, "I was taking morphine due to my illness. Your dose just knocked me out briefly, but now I am going to kill you." Edgar threw a lamp at her, which caught the room on fire. The fire spread to the rest of the house, trapping the two remaining Harkley cousins inside, where they were killed, fulfilling the curse of Harkley Heath at last. The end. I hope you enjoyed this vicious story. There is nothing quite like a spooky English house on the moors. Gosh, I love it. The cousins have what could graciously be described as a low moral character, and got what they deserved in true EC fashion. I love how the cousins turned on each other each in turn. They were doomed from the start. The art on this perfectly gave the spooky mood you'd expect. The house had lonely libraries, dramatic staircases, archways with winding staircases down to dungeon-like basements. The perfect home for any monster kid. The three cousins were drawn very distinctly. Charles was a goon in a handsome suit. Edgar was mousy and jittery. Sybil was a vicious-looking redhead. It's stories like this that made EC the household name it came to be. If you're interested in a copy of The Vault of Horror Volume 1, the book can be purchased on Amazon, and you can find a link to buy it on the MKR website. I hope you enjoyed this story. My name is Jerry Green, and you can find me on my podcast, The Professor Frenzy Show, where we talk about new indie comics, and Bat Books for Beginners, where we talk about historical Batman and Bat Family comics. You can also catch me on Twitter at Professor Frenzy, and search for Professor Frenzy on YouTube, where you can find The Professor Frenzy Show and some exciting projects we have coming up. Stay tuned, and thanks for listening.
Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy, show. Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy, show.
Welcome to the Crypt. You are invited on a guided tour of a world of darkness, where nightmares become reality. Dead lives. Dead lives in Tales from the Crypt. The Vault of Horror is about to open. You will learn its terrifying secrets if you dare. Tales from the Crypt from Cinerama Releasing. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Some material may be unsuitable for pre-teenagers.
If somebody asked you to describe a movie to them, what would you say? Would you say that Guardians of the Galaxy is Star Wars meets the A-Team, or that Jurassic Park is Westworld meets the Lost World? The X meets Y pitch is a long-standing Hollywood tradition, one that's been used to sell plenty of movies that otherwise probably wouldn't have been made. But instead of starting with a script and comparing it to two movie titles for an X meets Y pitch, what if we started with two movie titles and improvised the pitch? Well, on my podcast X Meets Y, that's exactly what we do. I'm Jonathan Inbody, and each episode I and a guest will randomly select two movie titles, and then we have half an hour to come up with a new original movie idea that could be described as Movie X meets Movie Y. We've done episodes like Ocean's 11 meets 2001: A Space Odyssey, Godzilla meets Old Yeller, and RoboCop meets Dead Poets Society. Basically, it's a half-hour sprint through a brainstorming session, and it is a lot of fun. If any of that sounds even the slightest bit fun to you, then you should give X Meets Y a listen. It's available wherever you find your podcasts, or at xmeetsy.libsyn.com. Hopefully, you'll hear my voice again very soon, but for now, enjoy the rest of your regularly scheduled podcast, you lucky so-and-so.
Seven young people shipwrecked on a mysterious island. The island was deserted. Not even birds or animals dared to come here. What did they find?
Hey! Hey!
Seaweed, fish, and turtle's eggs. Anything we can eat, as well as snakes and lizards.
Just let me finish. There's a lot of grass growing around here. You can eat the roots. You can eat the roots of a lot of plants here. You never thought of that, did you?
They were driven to the edge of starvation. Food was scarce, and they were forbidden to eat the mushrooms that grew on the island. Fear and hunger turned them against each other.
I'll kill you.
But Tango will help me live.
I haven't been hungry since I left the ship.
Mamie. Oh, help me. Help me.
Please.
Can't we eat the mushrooms now?
That would really be the end of us. Akiko! Look out! Oh, look out!
Matungo, the horrible mushrooms. Matungo, the vegetable monster. Can they escape the dreaded Matungo? You'll find out when you see Matungo.
Monster Kid Radio presents Dr. Tongue's World of Monster Collectibles. Spanning the globe looking for monster goo so you don't have to. Dateline, the internet.
I've been remiss in avoiding this for some time now. Well, seeing as that the movie was released into theaters 3 months ago, Godzilla King of the Monsters roared onto screens in the US in late May, and with it came a plethora of merchandise. It looks like the majority of the figural monsters from the new movie are made by Jakks Pacific, and good old Godsey comes in a range of sizes to suit the most discernible kaiju fan. Now, I have been remiss in updating you on all of this because A, you have probably already heard about it, and B, it's new versions of the classic Toho monsters. I'm really not amused. If you're into the more cute, super deformed kaiju fare, Kid Robot has released their Godzilla King of the Monsters blind box set. Lots of your old favorites are here, including classics like Mechagodzilla, Mothra, and a really weird-looking Rodan, as well as 6 different versions of the big guy. And speaking of classic Godzilla, the Criterion Collection has announced for its 1000th release, say that 5 times fast, again, they will be presenting a 15-disc Blu-ray classic Godzilla set late in October of this year. Just brings tears to my eyes thinking about it. Starting with the classic 1954 radiation-soaked celluloid masterpiece Godzilla, and following that up with 14 of the sequels from the Showa era. Also included in the set is a deluxe hardcover book and plenty of new extras on every disc. And just a helpful reminder, set your pre-order up with Amazon through the MKR link and help Derek out with the production of this show. It would be much appreciated.
This just in!
And for those of you out there that have not yet seen the new film, it is set to be released streaming on Amazon in mid-August, and a Blu-ray release to follow later in the month.
Artist Spotlight!
I really love my monsters, and I prefer them big, ugly, scary, and dripping with ooze when appropriate. This next artist I'm going to introduce you to prefers the cuter side of the spectrum. Jellicoe Art and Toys is a 2-person monster-making machine out of Columbia, South Carolina. Kelly and Spencer Shaw make some of the cutest monster stuff I have ever seen, and that's not a bad thing either. As I stated, I like my monsters big, ugly, and scary, but Jellicoe makes them so sickly sweet and cool that there's something, well, disturbing about them. The feeling is that they will lure you in, and when you're feeling safe and you're not in danger, wham! That cute little monster is having you for lunch. Specializing in that big-eyed look of an updated Keen painting, subject matters breached by Jellicoe are the Addams Family, Munsters, Aliens, of course Dracula and Frankenstein and other classic Universal-inspired creatures, as well as Freddy, Jason, and all that slasher gang. But it's the cute, twisted ones that get me every time. How about a knife-wielding bear named Stabbington? Or a big-eyed, pink-headed, smiling Baphomet to steal your soul? Art prints, enamel pins, original art, and more are all available over on the website jellicoe.com or over on Instagram under the same name, and get ready to get your twisted monster obsession on.
Vintage monster toys!
This time around, I'm going to take a trip back into the late 70s for your vintage monster toy flashback. But I'm sure some of you remember these little fellas maybe even earlier than that. Now, when I say the word eraser to you, what do you think of? And I'm not talking about that crappy movie in the 90s with Arnold in it. What pops up is probably a pink, odd-shaped rectangle that barely removed any of the pencil marks and left a ton of rubber shards all over your paperwork and your desktop, right? Wrong. The ones I'm talking about were manufactured by Diener Industries out of Chatsworth, California. Founded way back in 1957, they specialize in making figural rubber erasers. You know the kind I'm talking about. We've all had them at one time or another during our childhood. Cute little rubber figurals of some of your favorite cartoon characters. Hanna-Barbera, Disney, Warner Brothers, generic cars, circus animals, weird space robots and ships. They were everywhere. I seem to remember them at my dentist's office. You know, the prize you got for putting up with getting a cavity filled? That was really a fair trade, right? Not really. As a matter of fact, 25% of all of Diener's business was to dentist's office, all the way up until 1983. I'm sure you ran into them elsewhere, though. Student stores, at a school carnival, grab bags, party favors, and especially at family restaurants that had that pirate treasure chest. You know, the kind you got to pick a really crappy prize out of a really crappy wooden chest for being a good little boy and girl after you got done eating. In the late 70s, Diener made a series of 8 different monsters they called space creatures. Released to accompany the already popular space robot and spaceship sets, go figure, it was the late 70s. Thanks a lot, Star Wars. They were originally released as erasers, but then history was made. McDonald's approached Diener to include them as prizes in one of their very early Happy Meals. Rumor has it that they were made of a harder plastic than the eraser rubber, which would explain the couple of different durometers of the figures I have run into. But when I perfect my time machine that I'm working on, this is one of the things I plan on going back and investigating more thoroughly. Don't strap on that dragonfly. Now I mention the space creature figures due to the fact that they should be of special interest to monster kids everywhere, as these little fellas closely resemble some classic cinematic B-movie critters that we all know and love. These are close enough, but some need a little stretch of your imagination in order for you to see. First off, there's the short, bulbous-headed alien, resembling those aliens from Invasion of the Saucermen, one of my personal favorites. Another extraterrestrial has the head of an alien from the Outer Limits episode, The Keeper of the Purple Twilight. This one's not really hard to see. There's a monster with the head of the space creature from I Married a Monster from Outer Space. And then there's a full-on fly monster, which I am sure is a nod to the Hedison's insect head. There's a reptilian space traveler that closely resembles Harryhausen's Emir from 20 Million Miles to Earth. Another goofy alien that's copped his look from the underwater aliens from Destination Inner Space. There's a wing monster that looks like the cross between the flying creatures from the Lost Continent and Batman's Man-Bat. And lastly, the one that needs the most help in stretching your imagination, the Cyclops ape. To me, it looks like the furry critter from Terror in the Midnight Sun, minus one eye. You might know it better as Invasion of the Animal People, and extra points if you've been able to sit through that one. Aside from being available for sale in countertop dumps, the space creatures were also released on card in 2-packs with varying card art. I have seen at least 4 different versions of packaging. That variety were sold at party stores as party favors or cheap grad bag gifts, as I had mentioned before. And to make collecting them that much more complicated, each monster came in a bunch of different colors originally, with some popping up in neon colors at a later date. Now, if you're interested in collecting these little guys, you're in luck. Most can be found for under $5 each, although they are usually mixed in with a batch of other smaller figures that you're going to have to buy along with them. And once again, a special thanks to Derek here at MKR for the opportunity to run these little segments, and to remind you, I am not a monster toy expert. I just know what I like, and I like what I know. I am an excited monster enthusiast. You got any sneak peeks of monster merchandise coming out soon, or feedback on the DTWOMC segments? Drop Derek a line, and he will forward it along to me here at MKR. And if you're interested, you can see what's happening at my toy shop over on Instagram at Dr. Tongue's Toys, all one word, as well as on Facebook under Dr. Tongue's I Had That Shop. Or head on over to my private account, MonsterMan64, and see some of the cool stuff I pick up for my personal monster collection. Once again, this is Mark Dr. Tongue Peterson saying, happy monster collecting, everybody. I'm out! Peace!
The fantastic duel of the century, the most ferocious battle in history. The flesh and blood King Kong fights his most incredible enemy, a 60-foot robot King Kong forged of super steel. King Kong escapes. All new, all thrilling in Technicolor. King Kong battles missiles, monsters, and a King Kong of steel. King Kong escapes. A Toho Company limited picture, a universal release.
Life has many strange secrets. And none is stranger than the curse of the blood ghouls. In the dark of night, they leave their tombs to satisfy their need for blood. Because these demons of the undead can exist only by ravishing the living.
Let me go.
With abnormal powers of love, they enslave the unwary.
Don't let her go.
Leaving on them the horrible telltale fang mark of the vampire. Life-devouring monsters in human form. They can be anywhere, everywhere.
Louise!
No one is safe. Only by destroying them will a town gone wild with terror and fear be free of the curse of the blood ghouls.
Good evening, Monster Kids. This is the Count. I'm here with some friends to tell you about our favorite board and card game podcast. It's Go Forth and Game. Tom and Ryan talk about all things gaming with special emphasis on interviews with game designers and publishers. What do you think about this, my tall, gaunt friend? Go Forth, Game. Good. And what about you, my undead comrade? I think Go Forth and Game is the most entertaining podcast about board and card games that I've come across in 4,522 years. So, if you enjoy listening to two monster kids discuss topics like abstract games, the best family games, game schooling, various game mechanics, and of course, monster-themed games, then you should give Go Forth and Game a try. That's goforthandgame.com, available on iTunes and Spotify.
Hello there, Monster Kid Radioheads. This is Kenny with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. This week's movie was not featured in Famous Monsters, so I'm going to start a new series called We've Seen That Already, or What You Waiting For, Derek? We will go through Famous Monsters issue by issue and pick out articles dedicated to specific movies. And if they were covered in the past on MKR, we will hit some of the highlights and let you know which MKR you can hear about the movie. If they have not been covered, we will again pick a couple of highlights and ask, what you waiting for, Derek? It'll take a while, but we will eventually see every film featured in Famous Monsters. Let's get started. Famous Monsters number 1 features several compilation articles talking about the famous monster stars, Scream Queens, and Frankenstein movies, among others. The first film which merited a feature in Famous Monsters was Invasion of the Saucermen. In a photo article, we meet Paul and Jackie Blaisdell, and we see some fantastic behind-the-scenes photos of how they made the alien from Invasion of the Saucermen. Here is what the article had to say. Frankenstein, the doctor, in his last days never had it so good as Paul Blaisdell, MD, monster doctor. Except that whereas Frankenstein's monster turned on his creator and destroyed him, the only threat that Blaisdell's monsters constitute to him is to kill him with work. Blaisdell is the busiest monster maker in the movie industry. He's so busy, he's even employs his wife Jackie as his assistant. She's the gal who bakes brain cakes in the kitchen. And when the Blaisdells have assembled their latest monster, it's quite a sight watching Papa Paul drive down Sunset Boulevard with Junior by his side in the front seat. Blaisdell's beasties are chauffeured to work in style. They arrive at the studio gates in a Cadillac, no less. Blaisdell's monsters have enriched the lives of millions of monster lovers, and thousands of hours of sweat and blood and tears have gone into the creation of his fearsome menagerie of otherworldly life forms. First, there is the visual concept of the monster itself. Blaisdell is a top-notch artist whose covers have been featured on leading science fiction magazines of America as well as abroad in Germany and Sweden. He makes many preliminary sketches in pen and ink, and then a variety of paintings showing each monster front view, back, side, full face, etc. After one of his many employers has okayed the artwork, the hard work begins. First, a head or body form is molded out of clay. Then a plaster mold is made of the clay form. From the plaster mold comes a rubber mold. Plastic eyes and teeth are added, and like a living statue, the thing is painted. A brilliant red in the case of the giant cucumber creature from Venus, It Conquered the World, or sea green and seaweed brown in the case of the she creature. Blaisdell's priceless secrets of monster making are carefully guarded in his Topanga Canyon retreat, where visitors to his laboratory-like workshop must first cross a high aerial suspension bridge over a raging river. He loses more visitors that way. Asked what the single most costly substance of his specialty is in an exclusive interview for Famous Monsters of Filmland, famous monster maker Blaisdell answered without hesitation, "Midnight oil. I burn it by the barrel, keeping creatures rolling off the assembly line around the clock." Looking at his stock of shock masks, fangs, talons, tails, horns, etc., it was easy to believe he was telling the truth. So, have we heard about Invasion of the Saucermen on MKR? Or is it a what you waiting for Derek movie? This is definitely a what you waiting for Derek movie, featured in the First FM and not on MKR. Do you love the movie? Let Derek know so our iconic bulb-headed aliens can get their proper due on Monster Kid Radio. That's all for this week's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. This is Kenny for MKR. We'll be back with more next week. Adios.
Police headquarters? This is Carter. Johnny Carter.
Oh, sure, they're from another planet.
What a dilemma for young lovers Steve Terrell and Gloria Castillo.
He thought I was kidding him.
Nobody will believe the invasion of the Saucermen. All this makes it seem natural for a beer-drinking bull to appoint himself chaperone of Lover's Lane.
Hey, for Pete's sake!
And a farmer with the longest shotgun you've ever seen plays the villain.
What's so funny?
Well, I expected to be frightened on my wedding night, but nothing like this.
It's our busy night, too. We've been flooded with calls from people who say they've seen flying saucers and little green monsters. Wonder how that rumor ever got started.
It's too fantastic to believe.
Just think of it. Only this special unit and the President of the United States will know what happened here tonight.
You mean you think we know what's happened?
Vampires, werewolves, zombies.
Yes, these things are real, but fortunately for those of us who can afford him, so is Mark Temple.
And he's good. Real good. He's a former FBI agent turned freelancer with the knowledge and skills to eliminate your monster problems. And his rates are negotiable.
Monster Hunter for Hire, the first volume of the Supernatural Solutions, the Mark Temple Case Files, is now available in both ebook and paperback. Go to tinyurl.com/monsterhuntertemple to buy your copy of Derek M. Cook's latest book.
Read about Mark Temple, the experienced professional now available to rid you of your supernatural, ghoulish, and monstrous pests.
That's tinyurl.com/monsterhuntertemple.
And don't worry, Mark Temple is discreet.
Jolt of terror with two of America's most blood-chilling science fiction shockers, Island of the Burning Damned and Godzilla's Revenge. In this quiet setting, a tale of prehistoric horror is about to unfold with the science-battling awakening of long-gone giants. Fighting amongst each other for the conquest of our planet. See the giant spiders spin their web of fear around their enemies. Godzilla's revenge knows no limit. No end. No stopping. See man's last attempt at saving humanity from destruction. And Godzilla's revenge. And on the same shock-filled program, Island of the Burning Dam. What is that strange noise and burning white heat that drove people to their death?
I have been convinced that this island has become the center of an invasion. The central landing point for beings from another planet.
What happens when an unknown power from outer space uses our radar signals as life-saving beacons to bring it to Earth to consume our energy? Island of the Burning Damned, an island desperate for help.
You shall pay, Black Prince. I curse you with my name. You shall be Blackula.
Blackula, the Black Avenger, rising from his tomb to fill the night with horror. Blackula, Dracula's soul brother, deadlier even than he. Blackula, he thirsts for your blood, he hungers for your soul, more horrifying than Dracula. The Black Avenger, Blackula, an American international release, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
A disembodied head, Nostradamus, a wax museum, grave robbing, thrown into a blender of film noir. And we have the movie that we're talking about this week on the show with, well, a guy who still has his head. Micah Harris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, Derek, for a very busy guy, I guess you could say. I'm trying to keep my head, and I hope that that will be the first and last bad head joke that you can't seem to keep yourself from doing, even though you know they're groaners. But anyway.
Well, you know it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We can't get away from it. I mean, we're talking about a movie about. You know what? We'll talk about the movie in a second. The last time I chatted with you was at Monster Bash. It's been about a month and a half since then. How have things been going for you post Bash?
Again, very busy. I'm working to finish up a fantasy novel by the 1st of September, and it turned into something really big, so I'm really having to cut it back. And I did give a little preview of it at Monster Bash. Had the booklet with a self-contained episode within the story that kind of had a Hammer horror feel to it. And as you know, you were giving those away at your table. I previewed it there and trying to do more promotional things for that, get it finished. It is a Snow Queen derivative novel. It's kind of like, what if Hammer had adapted Hans Christian Andersen? What if Hammer had made Frozen?
Which is something I would have loved to have seen. I'll have to settle for your book.
With Barbara Shelley during her Gorgon
mode.
There
you go.
Whatever. Would have been great, yeah. And it also has a Cthulhu impersonator in it. I think we've left Disney behind by this point.
Yeah.
So, I'm working hard to get that out. I have a lot of good artists involved with it in terms of illustration. Neil Vokes, who did the cover for the booklet, has contributed some art. My good friend Gary Woolard has done a map. This is one of those books with a map.
Nice.
The whole world.
Nice.
Yes. And I have some other really good collaborators in that regard.
Right on, man.
So I'm excited about it. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done. I've just got to finish it. It's a lot of work. But yeah, that's pretty much been my life since the bash.
Listeners, I still have, I think, 3 of the booklets myself, so stay tuned for the end of the episode. I'm going to tell you how you can win a copy from Monster Kid Radio, so stay tuned for that. You can always follow up with Micah at his website at minorprofitpress.com, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show as well, and link in the show notes. Y'all know how it works at this point.
Thank you.
So, we have a movie that we want to talk about. It's been way too long. How long has it been?
It's been 2 years, dude, since we did The Woman Eater, the companion piece to The Man Without a Body.
All right, so The Woman Eater came out in 1956. The Man Without a Body came out in 1957. Supposedly co-directed by Charles Saunders and W. Lee Wilder, but if you do the reading and the research, really Charles Saunders' name was kind of added for some financing purposes. He really didn't have much to do. In fact, some of the actors have said in interviews that he just kind of stood around the set when he bothered to show up. So it's just one of those things where you have to have a British name in order to get some money or permission, I guess, or tax breaks or whatever to film in Great Britain. But yeah, it's W. Lee Wilder's madness that we're watching here.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing that he's Billy Wilder's brother?
It's nuts.
The guy who gave us Sunset Boulevard and Sabrina and Some Like It Hot, and W. Lee Wilder gives us Killers from Space, Phantom from Space, Snow Creatures, Manfish, and the one that's really got my interested, Bluebeard's 10 Honeymoons.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, and then we were talking about Charles Saunders earlier. His brother was knighted, apparently, for his work in theater and bringing Agatha Christie to the stage. He was the guy who got the mousetrap going. So I'm looking at these guys, these brothers, and, Charles Saunders is giving us things like The Woman Eater and The Man Without a Body, and his brother is giving us Agatha Christie. Billy Wilder's giving us some of the greats of the Hollywood age. His brother is giving us, Manfish or something. It's like, was there a mix-up at the nursery in the hospital? That's what I'm wondering here. Yeah.
Who knows? Wilder also directed a movie called Fright that was produced or released in 1956. I only bring that up because The Man Without a Body was released as part of a double feature with the movie Fright at one point in the U.S.
Okay.
So that was the connection there. I did some digging, and I found a copy of the press kit for Man Without a Body.
Good night. Here we go. Where did you dig that up?
There's an incredible website, Zombo's Closet. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. And
fantastic.
He posts scans of press kits and lobby cards, and if you're looking for something, you can find really good scans online that he's put up for us. And these press kits, I love them. I love these press kits so much. Now, I know they're written from that kind of ballyhoo, get butts in the seat kind of approach. So you really can't believe all of it. It's all promotional material. But if you read this press kit, You're meant to believe that one of the actresses in this film is a woman without a country. That she, in a bold bid to escape from behind the Iron Curtain, where she had been a guerrilla fighter in the cause of freedom, she walked for days without food and drink until she found an unguarded point on the border. After a series of adventures in half the countries on the continent, Nadja, the actress we're talking about here, arrived in London where her magnetism attracted the attention of movie makers. I don't know how true that is. I did a little bit of digging on this, and yeah, she did flee. I think it was the Ukraine. Whether or not she was a freedom fighter and she was on, I don't know, but yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting about that too? She is the lovely Odette.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Of the Man Without a Body, the sultry temptress, who, and she went on to do a couple Bond movies.
Yeah.
So the Cold War thing was working out well for her,
right?
And I believe she just died this past April.
Yeah, she passed away earlier this year in April. Nadja, and I don't know exactly how to pronounce the last name, Regin or Regan. There's a G in there, and I don't know if it's a hard or soft G. But yeah, she did pass earlier this year. But she did some Bond work, did a lot of television. She was on The Saint, Danger Man, a handful of other things like that. And I guess when the movie starts, you feel like maybe she is the daughter of our lead, but not quite. It kind of you quickly get.
I thought it was funny that one of the guys in the movie says your daughter, when obviously, I mean, by that point we know, there's something going on between them.
Not quite.
But yeah, their relationship confused me too. I never thought she was his daughter, but there is certainly, you sure you don't mean granddaughter? But I didn't know, like, are you his wife or something? Because there's that whole weird scene where she's obviously flirting with the handsomer guy right in front of him across the restaurant.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there steaming, but yeah, I think she was his I mean, she says, if you can trust her, her character's rather devious. She says he was my father's business partner. So, I picked up somewhere that she's his mistress, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense in context of the movie.
Well,
in
yes,
real life.
I mean, in terms of the film, sure. And we're talking about Carl Broussard, played by our mad doctor from The Woman Eater, George Coulouris.
Back for another turn as a mad genius. Well,
mad something.
Yeah, he's kind of a
mad oil man.
Yeah, it is different. But I did read where he said that he was very content playing bad guys.
Well, he's good at it.
Of course, we talked about our friend George a little more when we talked about The Woman Eater.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he was associated with Orson Welles, that he's in Citizen Kane, the rich man there again, who Charles Foster Kane is given to by his mother, by Agnes Moorehead. That's George Coulouris. He worked with Kubrick and was in Murder on the Orient Express, I think. He did like a modern dress Shakespearean stage play.
Wow.
Back, like maybe in the 30s or something. And so, he's got all these high artistic associations. And then he's got The Woman Eater and The Man Without a Body.
It was a slow year that year for him or something. I don't know.
Whether Orson Welles is knocking on your door or not.
So the Man Without a Body, the story is pretty simple, even though it's got all these disparate elements that kind of come together in an interesting way, but it's not overly difficult. Carl Broussard, rich man, dying. He's got a brain tumor, and he wants to figure out a way to fight this. He doesn't want to die, obviously. He was trying to figure something out. He goes to his doctor. His doctor recommends somebody else over in England, Dr. Merritt, played by Robert Hutton, who I really liked. And man, if I could have a mustache like that man, it would be amazing. Dr. Merritt is up to some, I don't want to say mad science, because he seems very open about it and is writing medical journals about it. And
yeah.
No big deal. We're just making heads come back from the dead. That's all.
And they're hoping to go wide with it by the end. That's what gets me. It's like, will my healthcare plan cover this?
Do you take insurance?
Yes.
Yeah. So Broussard gets it in his head.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
That's your one. I had mine
that Dr. Merritt's techniques, his discoveries, his breakthroughs are going to make it possible for him to... I'm not 100% clear. At first, it seems like he wants to have his brain swapped with another brain, but it wouldn't be him, so he's trying to train this new brain to be a replacement for him, but then he's still going to die. Bottom line, he ends up in France and finds Nostradamus' crypt and gets his head.
Yeah, and the whole thing is crazy because when you're listening to it, they actually begin to talk like if your body is strong enough, the host body, it will take over the brain, and you can assert the old personality can assert itself. And it's like, yeah, it's so wonky. I mean, I wish I could come up with stuff like this as a writer. You know, it's just incredible. Right? But you have that whole conversation. First of all, I was watching this with my nephew, and he cracked up because our doctor, I'm going to call him Dr. Phil because that was his first name in the book. You know, our good-looking mad scientist there. He's somewhere between Richard Carlson and Colin Clive, isn't he? In the 50s, scientists became more respectable and our leading men, as opposed to in the 30s and 40s where they're dealing with things they shouldn't. And this guy's kind of straddling the line, between the two, it seems. Yeah. But he's having that conversation, and my nephew cracked up because he's talking about how household pets of limited intelligence have been given the brains of trained circus animals and apparently have started doing flips and walking on their hind legs or something. And my nephew was laughing because he's like, don't all household pets have limited intelligence, by the nature of being animals? It seems a bit, if I go down to the pet store, it's like, I'd like to see that kitten's high school diploma equivalent, please, before I take Fluffy home. It's just like, what are you, do you want a pet that will help your kids with their algebra homework? It's just such one of many bizarre turns of phrases in this movie, perhaps, that you're going to get.
It is odd, yeah.
Yeah, household pets of limited in intelligence, and I do think that maybe they're smarter than the circus animals because the circus animals got caught, right? They have to work for a living. The household pets, gravy trade, man. Air conditioned house. Somebody's putting my food out for me, changing my my box. Hey, it's great.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, but yeah, you get that notion, and it's something that does follow through, with this writer. And we got to talk about the writer because this man is one of the unsung heroes of horror cinema. Early on, we see Broussard, working out, right?
Yeah.
His physical regime, although I always see him do his squats. His trainer's doing all the hard work, but he talks about his muscles of steel. And all these things. Buddy. So there's this idea that he's got, a physical superiority about him. And that follows through with the notion that the body, can take over the mind. And, not to jump too far ahead, but at the end, that's what they're hoping for, But we'll get to that. Yeah. So it's a very, very bizarre notion from a very bizarre film, but we've done some research, and I checked it with. Okay, I gotta say, my brain trusts Tim Durbin.
Oh no, you did not.
Yeah. I was hard to get around that, but Tim's an encyclopedia, of these things, guys. So I felt good because I was looking at it, and I think this is the first disembodied head movie, living disembodied head movie. We take it for granted, I guess, along with, living in a free country, disembodied head movies. But somebody had to be first. And, yes, somebody please do correct me if I'm wrong, but checking it with Tim and doing my own, a little bit of research, this one created the genre, which is actually, if you think about it, an innovation on the zombie film.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see it kind of being part of that.
Piece of a zombie, and it's alive, the living dead. But this movie created it. The gentleman's name, William Grote, or Grote, Grote. This is his only film credit. According to the British Film Institute, this is the only movie he ever wrote. Maybe not surprising with this film. But also, it's the only movie that Film Plays Limited production ever made.
Yeah, I was seeing that too. And I don't know if that speaks to how the movie was received when it came out.
Uh-huh.
It is hard to find a lot of reviews on this film. I had no idea. I didn't even know what it was when we were talking about it a couple of years ago.
Did the movie destroy them both? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I don't know.
But the film, it's been notoriously obscure. If you look at the Wikipedia entry there, you see how even on home video and television, it was rare to see, which is really... Perhaps tragedy's too strong a word, but it is something of a loss. Like I say, this film created a genre. And it wasn't until the next year that Universal's It's the Thing That Wouldn't Die or something, the Conquistador Hit in a Box movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Right, yeah.
That's the next year. Then there's a German film right after it called The Head. And then everybody's favorite, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, is like the early 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And so it seems like, Tim pointed out that there's one of the Inner Sanctum mysteries where Lon Chaney Jr. walks around with a head in a bag, for the whole thing, but it's not the same thing. And, I mentioned Peter Lorre in Mad Love. Fakes being a guy whose head was cut off, I believe, and has it put back on with a brace and walk. But that's all just a sham. Great visual, though, Yeah.
In 54, we had The Mad Magician, which it's not technically like a living head, but the head is kind of a plot element. The Vincent Price film, there's a head in a bag that the police accidentally pick up or whatever.
But it's not alive, right?
No, not at all.
Undead or whatever.
No.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I can't think of anything Man Without a Body that
it just
has
makes
that.
me wonder was there a censorship thing? Did people think that was too ghastly? Because it's a pretty easy monster to do, And then The Man Without a Body, a drive-in independent film. And so maybe they were free from, I don't know, but of course British censors are notorious, for X certificate, and those
which
things.
This movie got.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I guess, I don't know. Standards had loosened up.
Maybe.
That you could depict a severed head. Yeah, but William Grote is an unsung hero of horror films and a whole trope that we take for granted. Nobody knows who this guy is. And
I've tried to find more information about the guy, and he may have been an author. There is a William Grote that turns up on some book websites like Goodreads, and Amazon has a listing for him as well. So he may have been an author, but again, I don't know.
Well, it gets more fascinating.
Yeah.
To hear about it. Yeah. Like, what is the story of William Grote?
Yeah.
Or Grote, what inspired him? Hunger to write this, or Bill Warren in Keep Watching the Sky speculated that there had been some MGM short films on Nostradamus, and they'll start like 1938.
Okay.
That when you had back in the days when going to the movies was an event with a cartoon and a newsreel, short subject, and there was a series about that. There had been some time between that and this movie, but that makes you kind of wonder if that was part of it, if he's right. And then I wonder again, if some of the Kurt Siodmak movies from Universal and Donovan's Brain, but especially like in House of Frankenstein, where again we have the same non-logic about brains. It's just I'm going to put your brain, the Wolfman's brain, in your body, right? And I'm going to get you back. It's like, but then he's no longer him. You may have done Larry Talbot a disservice, but the dude you're wanting to get revenge, he went out with his brain. Yeah, so, Siodmak, I don't know if he ever met a brain story he didn't like, or couldn't do some kind of bizarre. It's like, how does that work? And boy, does like I say, does Grote up the ante on the absurdity of brain transference and the absurdity. Excuse me. I wish I could come up with this concept. I mean, it's so crazy. It
really is. It's a beautiful mess. The audacity of the storytelling here. So you got a guy who doesn't want to die. Okay, we see this in other stories and films as well. He's going to go to extremes to try not to let death take him. I get that. How we go from we're checking in with this young, handsome-looking English doctor to we're going to go to the Wax Museum in France. Hey, there's an image of Nostradamus. After we saw an image of Hitler, I don't know why we had to see that, but okay. There's an image of Nostradamus. I have an idea. I'm going to go hire some drunk doctor to grave rob Nostradamus' crypt because it's very important. You can't dig a body out of the ground and expect to resurrect that head. It has to be a head that was kept in a crypt because underground, it just rots or whatever. But Nostradamus' body in a crypt above ground, it's fine.
Then let's not rush over that Wax Museum sequence because that... we spend some time there, probably along with the stock market footage, to pad out, the sumptuous 80 minutes of this movie. But that intrigued me. But first time I'd forgotten it, when I looked at it before and came back and watched it again, and I'm now seeing this movie maybe more times than any human being should have to, I say, but I do. I am a fan, though. I mean, I am a fan.
I loved it. I loved this film.
Yeah, but we get our Wax Museum tour, and Madame Tussauds Museum there. They go on location. Actually, it's in London, although she's from France. So there's a connection. And I started looking up her story. I've heard about that, and man, I don't know why nobody's ever done a movie about that. She was around the time of the French Revolution. And they brought her in to teach the royal family how to make votive candles or wax flowers or something. And she became the pupil of this guy who was a wax sculptor and did the sculpture that you see in the movie that's breathing, the Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, that's Madame du Barry. That's the oldest cast in a wax of a person, made of a person. And of course, she had her head chopped off as the mistress of the king.
I kind of feel like a lot of people had their head chopped off.
But you know who didn't? Madame Tussauds, right?
Well, that's true. Okay.
Right. Yeah. But she was going to. They had shaved her head and everything to lop it off because she was seen as a royal sympathizer, even though her master, the guy who taught her sculpture, because she starts, he was one of the guys storming the Bastille. But she got pegged. And they had her head shaved, and then they was like, no, basically you can do community service by sculpting death masks of severed heads. So in the movie, when you see Marie Antoinette's face in it, that's Madame Tussauds. I bet you on wax pressing that over Marie Antoinette's severed head. Yick. It's nasty. And then see the guy died and left his wax images to her. And she showed up in England, with her kids and some wax statues, and the rest is history. Actually, back when I was 10 years old, we went to Florida, and there was a Madame Tussauds, and there was the Chamber of Horror section there.
Ah, there you go.
And so, and as a kid, 10-year-old kid, I had to go see it, and I remember they had a recreation of the French, guillotines with like heads piled up in baskets and things. And get this. This shows you that taste is truly timeless. They had a wax effigy of the guy who kidnapped the Limburg baby in the electric chair with a light flashing off and on in his face.
Oh, man.
But here's the Monster Kid tie-in. We got down there. There were like life-size sculptures of the Universal Frankenstein monster.
Oh, there you go.
I think the Wolfman. And there was a photograph of a young couple who had gotten married down there in front of the Universal monsters. And the Tussauds had like a black and had like the newspaper story. And there they are getting married. And there's the Frankenstein monster and the Wolfman behind them. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but yeah, the whole Wax Museum thing. That's really a fascinating subject, and of course, I know horror has delved in. Have you ever seen Waxworks? I'm talking about the silent one. Isn't there one with at Veet or something?
Maybe. My silent film knowledge is pretty lacking.
But of course, Mr. the Wax Museum, and all those things. And see, Madame Tussauds actually did Voltaire when he was living. A sculpture of him. And, that's in Lionel Atwell's museum. Voltaire is there. But yeah, it's gross. I mean, if you look at it, and like they would have wax effigies for medical students, and you opened them up, and the guts are in there, the wax guts and stuff.
Oh, jeez.
It's nasty. I mean, because they look real.
Sure.
There's a whole cult around this, but anyway, yeah, it's I like I said, that fascinated me. That statue breathed for a long, long time that you see in the movie of the Sleeping Beauty.
That's cool.
They said, yeah, but yeah, Hitler's there. Henry VIII, his few wives, and Nostradamus. You know. And yeah, and again, it is bizarre. I mean, why does he go to a wax museum to look for, you know, my successor?
Yeah,
you know, yeah.
I don't understand the logic there, but okay.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this: it's visual. Okay, yeah, you know, it's true. Nice. It's instead of flipping through book pages, and it kept my interest.
Sure.
I've been talking for 15 minutes about that. Got sidetracked from the movie. So, good choice. You know, Charles Saunders or Billy Wilder's less talented brother who made it. You know, great call there. Yep. And a good way to pad it out. And boy, that's an enthused youngster, isn't it, at the head of the line in that scene? He'd be like me, you know, when I was there.
Sure.
You know, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In a minute. Yeah. So yeah, he gets the body of, or gets the head of Nostradamus, brings it back to the lab, and let's do some science. And I don't understand.
No, don't think too hard. And what about that laboratory, man?
Okay, the eyeball.
It's like King Kong's eyeball up there on the wall, rolling around, and it looks like, you know, I think we didn't mention that Broussard, the Colares character, is suffering from hallucinations, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
He's hearing telephones ring, which is kind of an odd one, and he's I don't think, you know, a man who's suffering from hallucinations, that's the best environment for him to be in. It looks like Salvador Dali, David Lynch, and the production designer for Pee-wee's Playhouse, you know, designed the decor of giant organs growing out there. You know, it is so bizarre. But, you know, the only thing he ever questions in the movie, knowing that he has hallucination, is that monkey's head alive?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess because it's important to him.
The eyeball?
Yeah.
Nope,
well,
no big
the
deal.
monkey's head.
Yeah.
He does a take on the eyeball, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing he's interested in is that monkey's head. And I guess he's foreseen the possibilities. But did you notice how they all talk to him about his brain tumor? The doctor who comes in, you know, to give him the bad news, he acts like he's offended that he has to tell his patient that he's terminally ill. You're making me uncomfortable. Did you get that?
Yeah.
From him there? He's like,
yeah.
You know, he says, it's hard for me to say. And it's like, are you breaking up with him? What's the deal with this? And then he's like, if you must know, you have an inoperable brain tumor. Yeah. It's like, if you must know, this is your doctor.
Yeah.
Talking, you know, and then he and the young guy that you know, the mustache you admire, you know, he gets on him too about, you were supposed to get more rest, weren't you? It's like, are you blaming him for having a brain tumor because he didn't get yeah, I mean, even the regular doctors, forget the mad ones, you know, don't seem to have any notion of what's going on here, you know, in terms of medicine and bedside manner and cause and effect. It's like it's a wacky world over there in England.
It's something.
Apparently in the medical profession there.
Yeah. You know, I know we're laughing, we're giggling through all of this, but you know what? I love this movie.
Oh, me too.
This movie is just, you know, and I actually purposely did not watch it until I knew we were going to get together and actually do it. So I watched it this morning, and man, it was awesome.
It is. It's. I mean, you know, the world would be diminished a little less I mean, a little more. Maybe that was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? The world would be a little less happy place without the man without a body, because it will truly make you laugh, make you smile. And you can't make a movie like this by trying to make a bad movie.
No, not at all.
And the way these actors deliver these lines, I don't think Lord Olivier could pull some of this off. They're so sincere. And the way they're dressed, and last year's Monster Bash, when Joyce Meadows, who's in The Brain from Planet Auros, who was there? Yeah. And, I saw like pictures, and she'd done like Tennessee Williams, as well. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, and I said, well, how does being in a movie like The Brain from Planet Auros differ from doing, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or The Glass Menagerie? And her response was so very interesting. She was like, basically, you just get into it, no matter what the role, I guess if you're a dedicated actor, you don't look down your nose at it, and you just give it, your best, your all. You don't have contempt for it. You just, it doesn't matter if it's The Blame for Planet Auros or Tennessee Williams. You do it with the same, earnestness. I mean, I guess you're going to rise to the subject matter. Yeah. But it's very interesting to hear her say that. It wasn't like this is beneath me or anything like that. And of course, I did read comments where our leading man was talking about how they were breaking up laughing on the set. I mean, who wouldn't? I don't. I mean,
yeah, I know.
It's just that the guy, when Clark starts arguing Nostradamus' head. And then it's so surreal because the rest of the scientists there, Dr. Phil and his would-be girlfriend and studly assistant who's having an affair with Broussard's freedom-fighting mistress. That would actually make a better movie, isn't it? I mean, I have to say, it does inspire me because I've come to my alternate version, Derek, of The Man with a Body. Okay. Yeah, I'll be glad to share with you when we're done and let the listener decide. If history decided which the right one got made, but yeah, it's they're all hanging outside. They close the door to give Broussard and Nostradamus's head privacy, and there's a whole thing where Broussard has decided, I'm going to imprint my personality on you. You're going to become me. And so they're standing around smoking cigarettes.
There's a lot of smoking of cigarettes in this, yeah.
But they're standing, it's like a water cooler break, and it's like, yeah, he's a classic egomaniac. Who do you think's going to win out in that battle? Nostradamus is an unknown quantity. He says, but it's not unlike a hypnosuggestion of a seance. Some people are more susceptible. And they're standing around smoking cigarettes while this guy in the next room is, you're Carl Broussard. No, I'm Nostradamus. No, you're Carl Broussard. He's talking to a head.
Just yelling at him.
And it's like, it's just another day at the office. Are those two at it again? It's like a Gabriel Garcia Marquez, magic realism moment where the most absurd, crazy thing is just, whatever. Is he arguing with Nostradamus' head again? They're like an old married couple, those two. I just, it's just amazing, the things that they, the way they deliver this stuff. And it's just with such sincerity. And of course, I don't know how many takes it took.
Oh, man, I can't imagine.
Yeah, because I did, like yourself, I used to, have aspirations to be a filmmaker and comic book writer, as we were talking about before. And I messed around with some movie making or filmmaking. And boy, I learned, that not only movies made in the editing room, they're saved in the editing room because you see actors who can't get your dialogue out of their mouth.
Right.
But then they get that one take, right? And that's the one anybody sees.
Right, exactly.
It's perfect, right? Yeah. But our leading man, now this was interesting here. His name is, what is his name? Last name's Hutton, isn't it?
Robert Hutton.
Yeah, he did a few genre films. I guess maybe The Colossus of New York might be his best known. But this is very interesting to me, Derek, because I was watching this, and I begin actually to crush a bit on his girlfriend in this movie, which, at first she just struck me. Jean is the name of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, she's just kind of, the part's not well written, and I know she did some other things too. She did TV and maybe some of the spy genre stuff at the time, and she did other things. But this is not the best, kind of film.
No.
And as this kind of horror heroine goes, she's a little, bland or whatever. But I don't know. She started growing on me. And it struck me that their whole thing is like, I'm in love with you, doctor. Why are you dedicated to your work and you won't notice me?
Mm-hmm.
She says things like, she's really pushing for a compliment. Well, I'm not exactly unattractive. And his response is, I think beautiful is the word you're looking for. And, I do have to say there is quite a gap in the scale between not unattractive and beautiful. Not exactly. I myself tend toward the not exactly unattractive end of things, but there's kind of a gap there, and between the two, and she's just pushing for that. And she has that line where she says, "You show more passion for a medulla oblongata." Well, I think, well, Gene, you know how to get your man now. Show him your medulla oblongata.
Oh no!
get an X-ray. Get a tattoo, Gene. He'll come around. Phil will come around with that. But their relationship, you start thinking about Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly in Rear Window.
Really?
And, yeah. And because of that whole, kind of tension there between them. It's different. But it got me thinking that. I got to think, well, man, what if this was Grace Kelly in this part? And Jimmy Stewart. And the man with the brain. And then I found out that Hutton was considered this was after my theory. Okay, I'm doing a Nostradamus here. I'm picking up on the psychic vibes, and I found out that Hutton was considered to resemble Jimmy Stewart so much that when Stewart went into service in World War II, Hutton was getting parts that Stewart would have gotten.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just I think if this movie had Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly in it, it would be better remembered. I'm just going to say.
Totally. Yeah. No. Yeah. The ending of the movie shocked me. I'm sitting here watching the movie. I'm having a good time. It's goofy. Nostradamus' head gets put on somebody else's body. It starts walking around. Okay, that's kind of cool. I know the press kit makes a big deal about the attack dog scene, which really is kind of
pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah. But the very end, and big spoiler here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you how the movie ends, how Nostradamus' head ends up. He's going to go hang himself.
Yeah.
He goes in the top of the bell tower. He makes a noose. He puts the noose on. And then we see the body fall, and I assumed it was just the body jumping. Nope. When he jumped, Nostradamus' head came off. And it's still in the noose, and the body is on the ground.
Yeah, that
was
kind
amazing.
And then we have the head. Remember, we have that artsy shot looking down from the head, swinging at people below. And what about that head, man? It looks like it's in when he becomes what I like to refer to as Nostrestein.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of brilliant because Nostradamus and the man whose body his head ended up on, who they're secretly hoping that their buddy who got shot by Broussard for having an affair with his freedom-fighting, glamorous girlfriend, that you can tell they're hoping his personality is going to take over Nostradamus' head. If you listen, it's like, did I do the right thing? And the guy says, he's like with a medical association where you're keeping your Hippocratic oath, to preserve life. And they're hoping that their buddy is going to take over the body. But then he goes completely bonkers, right? Yeah. The monster, he's roar, and he goes after Jean at that point. And, she's trying, I guess, to calm him down. And, you would think that, it's typical, right? In these 50s movies, the monster is going to be chasing a girl around the laboratory, around a spaceship deck, or whatever.
Right.
They know a pretty woman. And so here we've got a monster. First woman he's seen in 400 years. He's just got his body back. He's French. You think he'd try something, right? And she just screams and passes out, and he goes on his merry way.
To be fair, How French is he? Because not once does Nostradamus say anything in French.
Well, actually, I beg to differ. He says his name in French.
Well, okay, that's true. That's true.
De Nostradamus. But Michel de Monstradam. Notre Dame. Yeah. But that was amazing. And boy, I love that conversation with Dr. Phil and the head of police when he's saying like, yes, I kept him alive intravenously. I'm glad you approve. You know, it's like, the man's a cop. You're a doctor. You get like peer approval from him. And then suddenly these two guys have this mutual admiration society going, because then the police inspector, whatever, the head of the bureau, has the best line ever. I had to write it down. You know, it's remarkable it's alive, that head mounted on your assistant's body. That was quick thinking on your part, doctor, I must say. It's like, and these are the authorities, right? So it's like, and the medical profession and the cops are all like insane. It's like they just take absurd. I don't know. Maybe it was the war and the rise of existentialism. You know, but life is just totally absurd.
Yeah,
I'm getting a doctoral thesis out of this movie now. So, it is incredible, an incredible little film that is just, unjustly obscure. It inspired me. I could go places with this film.
Oh yeah,
and the Woman Eater. You just kind of almost get the impression that it's almost gearing up for something. That could be big, but they don't have the budget to follow through with it. And so it just, hey, that's a great concept, and movie's over. Yeah, I saw it on YouTube. Yeah, it's terrible print, but I'm glad that we could see it, because I'd really like to see how it looked compared to The Woman Eater.
Right.
And because that's a nice DVD for whatever reason. I think to give a fair comparison, you need to see The Man Without a Body in its original theatrical 35 millimeter negative splendor. Get Martin Scorsese on this quick.
Doctor, that monkey's head, is it alive?
Oh, yes, of course.
All you would need for me would be a brain. A human brain.
Well, it's hardly that simple.
Buy one. Steal one. I'll do anything.
When the brain is healthy, it will never die. For even severed from its body, it continues to live, to scheme, to plot.
Look!
What must have just happened?
For Carl Broussard, this means fantastic power. Now, once again, he can rule everyone and everybody, make them slaves to his venomous will. For inhuman strength, incredible might, unnatural powers, the man without a body will make your blood run cold. For it is without a doubt, without an equal, in thrills, excitement, and unbearable suspense.
All right, so we were talking about the movie, and you were about to give me an alternate take on everything here. I can't wait to hear this, man.
Okay. Well, there are two versions. One I haven't thought as deeply about. The first is the version of who was the guy who made Cabin Fever and Eli.
Oh, Eli Roth. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is the Eli Roth version.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But yeah, I'll be short. Yeah. Basically, it works. The head transplant with Nostradamus works. In Lou's personality, the adorable philandering Lou, the adorable adulterer. Yeah. He what? Can you philander if you're not married?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But, the adorable adulterer, Lou, his personality reasserts himself. Yes, he does look like Nostradamus, but he's back.
Okay.
And our Dr. Phil does, follow through with his promise to spread this to the authorities of medicine worldwide.
Uh-huh.
And so, it becomes a thing, get ahead extend your life, right? It's an immortality. So I'm seeing, this is where the Eli Roth thing comes. I'm seeing like, a third world country, right?
Okay.
Where they people come in to harvest heads. It's like Carl Broussard says in this, when he's not coming forward about who Nostradamus is to Phil. He just says,
right.
He's somebody nobody cares about him. Nobody knows, right?
Right.
So you can see, like, good grief, in India, where they have the practice, they cut the hair.
Mm-hmm.
And people just zoom in and fly out to LA for extensions and stuff. So I'm seeing heads being harvested, so that the wealthy and elite out in LA, can have a new head, grafted onto their body. Because the body might hold up a little better, than the face. Who needs plastic surgery?
Wow.
So heads being lopped off and all this stuff, out through the jungle, and that would be the gross version. Here's the fun version.
Okay. Yeah, please.
This is my version here. Yeah, we have the subplot of our heroine there, who is longing for Dr. Phil, Gene. He's a man dedicated to his job. So what I'm thinking is that, Nostradamus sort of been checking Gene out from the table over there, just ahead, right?
Oh, no.
And so when he gets a body, right, he's interested, right? And, he's got Lou, whose personality, who likes the ladies. So Gene starts toying with Nostradamus's feelings to make Phil jealous. And they're going out on dates. Nostradamus, in French, is wearing a beret,
wow,
and eating long loaves of bread, and they're sort of hitting it off. Well, she's using him to get Phil jealous, but here's the twist, right?
Okay.
Broussard, right, who is now, I suppose, still dead. He and the Nostrastein's storylines, came together there in that almost King Kong moment when they top off a stair. Head dangling, when his body falls. But we'd have to wrap him off some other way, right?
Sure.
But he was trying to imprint his own personality on Nostradamus. So the thing is now is that he succeeded, right? Broussard's personality has been lurking in that brain along with Nostradamus's and Lou's.
Oh.
And and so then he comes to the fore, Broussard, right? And think about it, he's gotten the body of the guy who was sleeping with his mistress. So that's a very nice sort of comeuppance. And then he kidnaps Gene, takes his, I think we missed the detail, right, of Broussard strangling the mistress to death with her necklace he bought her.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that earlier. That was yeah.
Yeah, that I tell you, that to me, talk about the head dropping. What kind of unsettled me is when Lou walks in, he doesn't realize he's talking to her corpse on the couch.
Yeah, it's a good point. Hey, darling.
Yeah, that was. Ugh. But I even have a happy ending because that she's fought the good fight against communist Reds previously to becoming a mistress, to be her great grandfather. And so now what he does, he takes her head, right, and kidnaps Gene, takes off Gene's head, puts the mistress's head on. Gene's more naturally good-natured and subservient personality takes over, and he's still got a sexy foreign accent when she talks, when he kisses her.
Wow. How long have you been thinking about this?
I thought about like maybe this afternoon.
Okay.
But I was supposed to be working on my novel.
Yeah, I said, don't you have a novel to be working on, man?
I may work this plot line into my Snow Queen novel.
Hey, you were telling me before we started recording that it's already way too long. Come on.
You're right. Yes, I have to save that as a special opt-in feature for my newsletter. But no, I want to do. I want to do the Man Without a Body remake. I'm saving it for that. I have no idea who has the rights.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think this is in the public domain, but I mean, how hard could it be to, I mean, the story's not,
That's right.
we can tell our own head
Exactly.
story.
Yeah, I think I've taken quite a turn here of my own. So that, that's my more perhaps upbeat version, at least for Broussard. I mean, he kind of gets a happy ending and achieves his goal, right?
Yeah, but of all the characters in the movie, he's probably the least, I mean, he's the most despicable of all of them.
Yeah, but
does he deserve a happy ending?
Well, it's kind of like real life, Derek. We're getting some verisimilitude here. How many obnoxious people, live well while the good, dwindle
Wow.
and don't do as well. But he actually, if you listen to what he said, there was a hint of his having a bad relationship with his dad. He ran away when he was 11 and started shining shoes. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, and now they all lick mine, Well, I do get that's no excuse for being just a total jerk, but you see where he's coming from. And also, we do have to think, too, we're not exactly seeing this man at his best. He does have he's from the moment we see him, right? It's like the way Stephen King complained about the character of Jack in the novel The Shining, how it had translated over to the movie, which is like he said Jack Nicholson's take is crazy to start with. Right.
That's a
so
good
we're
point.
seeing Carl Broussard, he's hearing phones ring, which is a bizarre
a very specific hallucination.
Delusion there. And we keep getting those weird swirly vision things, like especially with that eyeball where it's rolling around. But he hasn't got a lot of rest. That's been established by two different medical professors, professionals, excuse me. It's
right.
Like, blaming him for having a tumor because he didn't get enough naps. It's like the most crazy thing I ever heard. So, this guy, we don't know, I mean, maybe that sexy former freedom fighter who's now mistress, she may have liked him at one time.
You're not going to let that go, are you?
That's right. The press book adds so much more backstory. It's like an Alan Dean Foster novelization of a movie, the press book, because now we're seeing things happen. It certainly makes her a richer character, I have to say. It would be much more interesting there. Of course, I don't know if she would have taken his abuse that well.
That's true, yeah.
Gun-packing woman, or whatever.
Guerrilla fighter.
Guerrilla fighter. That could have made things maybe a bit. Maybe she's gotten soft with all the jewelry and things, but that he's feeding her there. But yeah, like I say, that's kind of a guy that maybe, he wouldn't have gotten to the top without being the nicest guy. But I mean, I can't believe I'm making apologies for the villain of the Man Without.
No, keep going. I was just that's fine. That's
like the next podcast we'll discuss whether Hamlet is truly mad or just pretending. Or the we'll continue our probing of the psychological depths of fictional characters and how far writers can go with their creation since Samuel Richardson and Pamela in the 18th century. But like I say, he is kind of crazy. And again, if it were real life, I can't believe I'm qualified like a movie where you resurrect the head of Nostradamus, which it has no bearing in logic whatsoever.
If this happened in real life,
if it were real life, the tumor would change your personality or heighten the negative things, and so
that's true. Yeah,
I see it, Derek. I see this as a potential story of redemption.
Interesting.
He's by the time I'm done, he's going to be standing over there glowing with Darth Vader and Yoda and Obi-Wan and a little.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a thing.
Was that worth coming back for?
Oh, sure. Yeah, hands down. I said this before. I really like this film. I really do. It is just crazy enough to be enjoyable. It hits so many notes on the what scale that it's just a blast. I know we're laughing and we're kind of criticizing some things here and there, but really there's some neat stuff here. We could even go as far as saying, to play off the tumor thing, he's got a tumor. he's hallucinating. Who's to say that this isn't an unreliable narrator kind of thing?
Well, there you go.
Maybe there's something else going on here that we just have to infer because we're getting information from a guy who's hallucinating because he's got a brain tumor. So, I know that's a stretch.
This is a fertile acre of creativity. This little. No wonder somebody is jealously guarding the rights and.
I'm sure that's why. Yeah.
Yeah. The only way you can see it's a washed out copy on YouTube because they don't want this stuff getting out, man. This is after the superhero wave is gone. This is the next phase.
The severed head shared universe of films. Is that what we're looking for?
Exactly. The man without a body. Right. Shared universe. Well, let's just make it the George Saunders universe, or what it was Charles Saunders. And we go with the woman eater, right? And mix this one together. Corliss and the Explorer are twin brothers, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They took a separate path in life, and then we branch out to Hitler's brain, and
hey, we saw Hitler in the Wax Museum, so.
There you go. There you go. That's his next target, and he's a lot more recent vintage. And then we just slide a lot over with the Thing with two heads, and just keep going.
I don't think Hitler's body was kept in a crypt. I think we might be in trouble there. It might not work.
But they saved his brain, which in movie talk means they saved his whole head.
That's true.
Movie talk, yeah.
This is true. I don't know how much of it I'm going to leave in the show, in the cut, but listeners, Micah and I started recording, and then about 2 hours ago we had to stop, and we are now just picking up. So we've spent like a good chunk of afternoon on this film. And I don't regret it one bit, man. I really don't. This movie, it's just crazy fun.
I went through it twice prepping for this, taking notes, organizing, and doing internet research.
There you go.
I like sweeping out the corners of cinema,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as much as we love them, and it's always, possible to have a fresh take, right? But
sure.
So much has been on Son of Frankenstein, the Universal movies, the Hammer horror stuff, and I love it. And I'm always open, for something like to hear a new take on that, or,
Mm-hmm.
A new book on Terrence Fisher is going to get my interest.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But the corners, these little areas that are neglected, there's some interesting spare change that's drifted out over there, that might be a nice buffalo nickel over there that, and to me, that's very exciting because there's just so much more yet to be found. And when I started looking at this movie, I had no idea that I would end up actually having a little side course in something like, well, it is film history. It is horror film history. I don't know. Maybe this is just general knowledge to the public and I've been living in a cave or something. But to me, this was a revelation. Here is where the Living Head movies begin. And at least that's my theory.
Sure.
And of course, if any listeners out there, know something different, please call in or whatever.
Yeah, seriously. I want to know more. This is an area that I don't know a heck of a lot about.
But if not, my friend, we've done a service to the genre.
Is that what we did here?
I think that's what we're going to call it, euphemistically. But,
all right.
Why not? This is cinematic excavation while people listen. It's amazing, isn't it?
We're having a fun time just kind of, talking. And we know this movie isn't like high art. We get that. That said, you touched on something that is pretty important to me, and that's that when we do talk about some of these movies on the show, whether it's with the Rally Awards, which I just talked about last week, there's just something about finding some of these movies for the first time, whether it's an old obscure film or something that you just haven't gotten around to watching yet. It's just one of the things that I enjoy doing on the show, just shining light. So to have an opportunity, to have an opportunity.
Now you've got something new to enjoy.
Exactly.
Right? You've got even more to enjoy. Yeah.
So,
and this stuff is wonderful to me. To me, it's fantastic that these kind of films can exist, that they do exist.
This one, it's just so nuts. I want to know so much more about the production of it, but I have a feeling that we're not going to ever find anything.
Well, I don't know. You found that press book.
Well,
can something in this age completely disappear? I mean, this was all way before the internet and people were scanning and so on, but someone may have inadvertently scanned an obituary in Variety for this guy, right? When they're like 2 inches, but it gives, like you said, you thought he might be a novelist, right? And then you got something, right? You got a little toehold. That's the exciting stuff. You know, I've written we've talked about it. It hadn't been a while there. I do have a publisher looking at it now. It's with my novel on a Slitsy.
Oh, yeah?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, hopefully that will work out after all these years. But, you know, we started, you know, I was working with some other guys, the late Vern Langdon, and then this guy named Tom, who was a great researcher for genealogy and things.
Yeah.
You know, there was stuff on Slitsy. This guy found out, you know, going back to pre-World War I. And all these connections started appearing as we begin to look at documents and see names of people who had been connected with him. And it was very exciting, you know, to start putting these pieces together and know that you were on the trail of carnies and sideshow people who had no idea 70 years later somebody would be tracing their path, right?
Right.
You know, and that's exciting, you know, there's just a thrill to doing that and breaking that ground, as opposed to just looking up, although I love doing it, you know, the books that are written on genre films and things and the research people have done. But when you're doing that for yourself and discovering something new, it's an exciting experience if you're interested in film. Sometimes, like I say, you got to look in those little corners of film history. There's some shiny coins there. You might have to blow on them and polish them up a bit, but there's something special.
You won't get any argument from me on that one because this one, it's a blast. I know I'm going to revisit it. I know I'm going to recommend it to people. Like I said, it's just crazy. Everything that happens in this film is just nuts. I was not kidding when I said earlier by saying it felt like it was a film noir blender. I mean, it really is just all over the map. And it does have some film noir moments and elements to it. So you have that going on as well. And it's just...
Yeah, you're right.
It's crazy.
It's really got a femme fatale.
You got a femme fatale. You got all that stuff at the end when they're running around in the streets of London with the shadows and everything. I mean, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, you're right.
It looks gorgeous. So,
and it looks gorgeous through a really crummy print. So if we could just see it.
Find me a good transfer, man. Oh, wow. I don't know where to go from here. So I'm just going to mention your website again.
Okay, please.
minorprofitpress.com, and you can sign up for a newsletter over there. How often do you put out the email newsletter? Like once a month?
That's probably for right now what I'm going to be shooting for. I was doing it more often, and I've got to kind to readjust a bit because right now I'm focused again on the novel.
Okay.
You know, when I'm not pondering the man without the body, I'm working on that. So that's because I put a lot in my newsletters, man. You know.
Sure. I appreciate everything you do for the show, man, and I appreciate you being part of the show.
Thank you.
You know, bringing movies like this to my attention, man, just makes me happy.
I'm glad.
These movies are amazing.
Yes, they are.
Let them. Get out of there first. Blast them now. Drop now. You've got to do it. Dad, listen to me.
From the remotest reaches of the cosmos, an unknown force is overpowering mankind.
I can't get enough buildup. We'll never get off the ground. Count down.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
The greatest threat in outer space. The war of the planets.
You can't stop them. Laser's no good. You can't stop them. They're lights, but they've got shape. They're more than lights.
When you have them within, you experience power of mind beyond all comprehension.
Working feverishly, courageous astronauts vainly search for a transparent enemy that has overtaken their space station, paralyzing every form of life and motion.
And prepare for immediate evacuation of all space installations.
All the forces on Earth have been mobilized to combat this invisible, supernatural, deadly power that is crippling man's progress in space.
No signs of rigor mortis. No signs of decay or corruption.
Man's willpower, his will to live, is being crushed. It's a battle of wits against a subtle enemy for which there is no defense.
You can't do that. It's not human. You're crazy.
You too will be fascinated, awed, gripped, mesmerized, enslaved by the will of the deadly diaphanoids.
What is it you want?
Friendship.
I know how to deal with him. General, I'm gonna call radiation control.
Wait, Mike.
Let go! Get back here, Freddy! Where do you think you're going? I can make it, Commander!
It's a desperate fight, but a handful of fearless spacemen search for every sign, for every face that might hide the seed, the spawn of death that threatens to destroy the Earth.
We don't know whether we should treat them as living or dead, whether to do biopsy or autopsy.
The apparatus is not required.
I don't think that's for you to decide.
I will do the thinking, Commander.
It's a power of gigantic proportion. It corrodes the very will of mankind. This is a film you cannot miss. Man, pitched against the unknown, the incredible, the war of the planets. The war of the planets.
Our planet may be doomed, our Earth devastated. The monsters are in revolt, and civilization is in chaos. Godzilla is laying waste to New York. Rodan is attacking Moscow. Manda is smashing London, and Peking trembles under the wrath of Mothra. Our battle cry must be, destroy all monsters. Who can say which country or city will be next? We must unite and destroy all monsters. Is there a way to defend against Godzilla, Rodan, Manda, and Mothra? The answer is no. Let our battle cry be, destroy all monsters. Be prepared. See for yourself, in color from American International. Destroy all monsters. Monster. This picture is rated G for general audiences. Destroy all monsters. Monster.
Hey everybody, this is Heidi Bennett of Vibrant Visionaries podcast and Spinal Tap Minute podcast. And this is a quick little promo for an upcoming event, and it's Movies by Minutes Portland. We're going to be meeting up in Portland, Oregon on Saturday, August 24th. For live podcasting, games, and on the stage, we've got the Movies by Minutes guys from Star Wars Minute. Actually, it's going to be a mashup of Star Wars Minute and the Godfather Minute. The newly pod game, Rick from Mad Max Minute, is going to be hosting that. Vibrant Visionaries, where I'm going to have the fellas from Open the Podcast Doors, Hal, which I think you could probably figure out which podcast that is. And then just added The Cast and the Furious. So lots of live podcasting and some games going on. Tickets are $20. It's a family-friendly event. It's really a social event. It's not just for the Movies by Minutes listener, but the podcast listener and fan alike. Go to moviesbyminutes.com/Portland. That's moviesbyminutes.com/Portland to buy tickets. Again, tickets are $20. See you in Portland.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the show, and okay, I get it. And I know that Dr. Tongue, I know that Mark and Kenny didn't do this on purpose, but you both brought up Invasion of the Saucermen. I know I haven't talked about it here on the show yet. I want to, so you know what? let's make it happen. Sometime this year, I commit to talking about Invasion of the Saucermen. You know, it's something I've been meaning to talk about anyway. I love the music. I love the monster design. I love the film. So that'll happen. Thanks to Mark and Jerry and Kenny for contributing to this week's episode of the show. The show is only made better with the additions of these segments, and that's just not me saying that, gentlemen. I've had people tell me in person as well as through Twitter or Facebook or emails that they just really enjoy all of the segments. So thank you for helping to make the Monster Kid Radio podcast that much better with your contributions. I mentioned it at the top of the show. I'm going to mention it again. Our contact information, monsterkidradio@gmail.com, is our email address, and our voicemail line is 503-479-5657. That's 503-479-5MKR. And I want you to remember that voicemail line, because remember when I was talking with Micah about a contest? I've got 3 copies of the book that we were giving away at Monster Bash. This includes a short story, well, by me, one of the short stories from my Supernatural Solutions Monster Hunter for Hire book. And we've got some of Micah's work in there as well. It's professionally published. The artwork on the cover is great. And I want to give it to you, but you got to enter a contest to win. Here's how you can enter the contest to win. Man Without a Body was all about, well, a man without a body. And, well, a head without a man. Anyway, it's about Nostradamus' head and this plan or this scheme to put the head on top of, well, a headless body. What I'd like to know, I want you to create your own headless body monster by putting the head of somebody from history on it. And then, well, come up with a clever little name. Like, you know how Micah was calling it Nostradamus. He was combining Nostradamus and Frankenstein. I can't remember. I have to go back and re-listen. But call in within the next 2 weeks. We'll say the deadline is August 21st. And then on August 22nd, I will play all the voicemails. We'll let the listeners vote. The top 3 vote getters will win a copy of the book, and I'll mail it to you. So again, call 503-479-5657. Tell us what head from history you would put on top of a body to make your own monster. Bonus points if you tell me the name of your movie or a little bit of the plot or whatever, but not necessary. It's just fun. Anyway, you've got till the 21st to do that. I'll make sure our contact information, as always, is available on our website over at monsterkidradio.net. We can also find links to Professor Frenzy's podcast and Dr. Tung's World of Monster Collectibles and everything that he talks about there, as well as links for you to pick up the books that are talked about here on the show and that Criterion set of Godzilla films. If you are going to buy that Godzilla set, please consider using the link that we have in the show notes, because if you do that, I get a little bit of kickback, and that helps support the show because, of course, we are an Amazon affiliate. Also on the website, I'm going to embed a YouTube video that I released earlier this week that announced what was coming this month on Monster Kid Radio, and I'm just going to make you go over there to find out. So you want to know what's coming up next week, the week after that, or the week after that? Head over to the website and play the YouTube video, or just check out the Monster Kid Radio on YouTube channel over at youtube.com/Monster Kid Radio and play the video from there. Once again, big thanks to the band Surf Manchu for letting us play their music here on the show this week. The song was Drywall. It's from their album The Beast from the East. And like I said earlier, you can pick it up from their Bandcamp page over at surfmanchu.bandcamp.com. And yeah, it's spelled exactly like you think it would be spelled. But there will be a link in the show notes as well. It's a great album. Lots of fun music. I actually had a hard time figuring out which song I was going to play this week on the show. I think I did okay by picking Drywall, but you should go check out their other songs and let me know. Monster Kid Radio is a registered service mark of Monster Kid Radio, LLC. All original content of Monster Kid Radio by Monster Kid Radio, LLC is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, non-commercial, no derivatives, 3.0 unported license. Of course, that doesn't apply to the song Drywall. See what I just said about 30 seconds ago. And that's it. I'm done. My name is Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.